Right then, Darrell, what we got here?
This is the new TType 265 engine package. It's a bit of an evolution of the 252 one that you may have seen with Eric Cope riding around the countryside on. This takes it a stage further up to 265cc, utilising a 65mm stroke crankshaft, but still retaining the same 72mm bore of the RB cylinder. Putting the package together with the Clubman exhaust that we've been developing, a lot of R&D gone into that, which has produced this really kind of rounded engine characteristic, low RPM, low engine work rate from it. It combines together really well to produce this really nice riding characteristic, more akin to an original inner centre design as opposed to a full racing engine design. Still manages a good turn of speed though, all the same. It uses a 5-speed gearbox, either AF race speed or Italian origin, which can be selected or chosen by the end user. The 7-plate clutch that we use in our race and sprint engines, so that's more than adequate and up to the task. It's been pretty bulletproof, and in the kind of last 7 to 8 years that we've been using it. We're on the new ignition system that's being produced by Vape, which is supplied over to SIP, and basically the majority of the engine components are all readily available parts within the UK that most dealers will have on stock or on at hand, or your kind of items that you would see at a parts fair, should you ever need any. We found that with different riding requirements from different riders, you've got to kind of put them in different categories. Some people like a engine that is like a fairground kind of amusement park roller coaster ride, where it's just all frills and all kicks, and they want it to pop wheelies and be really impressive at ripping their arms out. And the next guy wants something that's more refined, more Rolls Royce, more Bentley Continental, more kind of Grand Tourer. And what we wanted to try to achieve was something that created a middle ground between the two. So we wanted to achieve the high horsepower figures that you would normally associate with a high powered tuned engine, which is what we're kind of seeing in the kind of 34 to kind of 37 horsepower range between the 252 and the 265 variants, but deliver it in such a manner and such a fashion that you would never believe that what you're riding is something that's got those kind of power figures. So relaxed is the ride and the power delivery and the way we've got it geared and pulled together, you would just believe that it's just an extremely well mannered, well kind of developed engine package that defies the kind of makeup of the engine itself. It's just a bit of a strange brew. It's a bit of a box ticking exercise to get as many things out of one engine package that pleases most people and covers all kind of walks of life, as it were. Pretty much everything that you need, even the engine mounts, and a rear shock with the adjustable length to be able to set the clearance between the inlet manifold and the frame. So that combination of parts will give you an engine unit that will fit in your chassis without the requirement to cut a hole in your side panel. You'll not need to cut your running boards at the side, because it's a Clubman type exhaust that the intention to supply this engine with means that you'll not need to cut your rear running board either.
What about availability?
Due to the nature of the way I operate my business, which is kind of parts business and parts engine building and tuning business, it's always going to be a limited run supply. At the moment I've had lots of kind of pre-order inquiries from customers whose names I've put down on like a waiting list, but the end delivery method of how we are going to be putting these engines out there will be on the basis that each engine unit will be completed in full. It will be in that final turnkey package where we can hand it over to a customer. It will be pre-dynoed in our dyno chassis, and upon each engine unit being completed and finished, we will go back to our short list of individuals who've made an inquiry with us, and we'll be offering it to number one on the list. And if number one has subsequently found an engine in the meantime, with the lead time that we're going to be looking at, it could be 3 to 6 months before the end user would get such an engine unit from us, and if they wish to go elsewhere and purchase something else in the meantime, then we'll move to customer number 2 who made the inquiry, and they'll be offered it onto number 3 and number 4 and so on and so forth. So that'll be how they supply and how we can control it in terms of work rate. Whoever wants it can take it.
What about price?
The pricing with the rear hub, the rim, the tyre, the rear shock, the carb, the air filter, the bellows, the Clubman based exhaust, we're looking at 5995 as that, and that's pre-dynoed, pretty much ready to fit. There'll be a little owner's manual that's been produced to go with each engine as well, which will cover service, technical specs in there, and maintenance schedules that the owners need to work to in the future, because I feel that's an area that's pretty much lacking within the industry. If you bought yourself a Vespa or a brand new Royal Alloy or a brand new car, you would get a little owner's manual with it, which tells you the specs and what the service schedules are and what the requirements are in terms of maintenance and how to apply them. I feel quite strongly about, really, which is part of the reason why I wanted the filter and the bellows on there. I want to try to make the engine unit as much as possible in the same way as what any Senti would have done if they would have been producing an engine today. So I want it quiet on the silencing, I want it fully filtered on the inlet system, and with a usable power delivery and characteristics. There's a few little bits and pieces that come with this engine package, as well as the kind of RB cylinder and the mammoth head that's on there. We've got our new CNC inlet design. That's got a straight through shot down into the reed valve assembly. That keeps the gas speed up. We've got a 2-bolt flange rubber fitment, and that covers a fitment of 70mm wide spaced inlet rubbers or 60mm wide spaced inlet rubbers. Designed this in such a way so that the bolts for these are clear of the 2 fixing bolts here, which on other designs mean that you have to remove the inlet rubber first before you can remove the 2 bolts on here. The rear of the inlet manifold is slotted. There's actually now 2 types of RB cylinder that's in production at the moment with 2 different stud spacings. So the slotted area here allows for this to fit on early or late cylinders. We combine this with a V-type reed, sometimes called a W reed, sometimes called a V reed. There's various manufacturers out there who make them, such as V-Force and Italicate and a few others on the market. We've come up with our own design, and that marries to that circular intake there and keeps the gas speed up through the 2, which is part of one of the areas where we see the performance increases from on this engine build. So that's that on the inlet.
That's still a prototype, is it? It's not quite finished.
This is the Mark II. We've been playing with the angles on this face here, and that angle determines whether or not the top of the carb moves too close to the fuel tank and the float bowl moves too close to the side panel. And the aim here is to try to maximise the clearance at the top for the tank and at the bottom for the side panel. And this slightly steeper angle we've gone for on this one should achieve all those things, and it still allows us to fit the air filter bellows and the air filter itself underneath the panels without the cutting of a hole in your panel. We've got these new solid copper head gaskets. We'd felt that the original head gaskets that were on the market that were just a standard size could have been improved slightly, and moving to the solid copper design works as a better heat sink. There's a huge amount of weight in there, and rather than using a small head gasket, I thought, why not use a head gasket that's the same size as one of the cooling fins and provide effectively an additional cooling fin to help with the cooling. So that's that within that package also. The whole of the build, all the components used, although it's a relatively new build in terms of the final cubic capacity that comes out at just under 265cc with the 72 bore 65 stroke configuration. Pretty much all the parts have been part of a kind of a maybe 6-8 year cycle from starting off with Group 6 racing and moving into quarter mile sprinting, etc. And through that process, we've kind of pretty much tested every component and every part that's on the marketplace, tested to destruction in some places and in some points, until we've got to the point where we've filtered down right the way through the system, from the chains that we use to the pull down tensioners that we use, to the sprockets we use, to the clutch assembly, to the brake shoes, to the rear hub bearing choice, to the engine mounts that we select. And there's basically everything in there is everything that we would use in our full-blown race engines. Considering that we've basically been product testing the products that are used within this engine build at 55 horsepower upwards in full sprint form, and although this engine unit's going to be a good performer, it's going to be well within the testing range of those sprint engines that we've tested all these parts on, because this will be circa 33 to 37 horsepower depending on final spec. So we're quite happy that everything that's used within that engine build not only is readily available, but they're also fully tested to the maximum degree. It's how basically most of our engine builds go out, using all this component spec that's out there.